crews were so tight, it wasn't even funny. I mean, they were beyond brothers, very short period of time. I mean, relying on each other and stuff. So they were flying over Holland. They just kind of finished a bombing run and unfortunately got caught in the spotlights at night. And when that happens, you're kind of a goner. Like, everybody on the ground starts shooting at you. They lost 3 of their 4 engines. The whole armada left them. They kind of limped along back into Holland and thought they were about to land at an Allied base, but as they got closer, they could see that the Nazis had taken it over. And Red Mcgill, who was the pilot, said, "Hold on, boys, we're in it now."
Greetings. This is episode number 26 of the Rose Bros podcast, where the idea is to share insights from other entrepreneurs, athletes, and cool people in general, all the while enjoying some Rose Bros coffee. This episode, Mike Rutherford and I sat down for the third part of the Rundle Eco-Capitalism series, sponsored by Rundle Eco Services, to talk to Mike McLeod and Cael Tucker, founders of Tailgunner Brewery. Tailgunner's story is based on Mike's grandpa, Lint Stephenson, who was shot down over Holland in World War II. The entire flight crew was lost in the crash except for Lynn, who then went on to spend 2 years in a POW camp. Mike tells the story with all the details and makes it sound like a Hollywood script, so make sure you stay tuned. Tailgunner is also backed by Blake Enemark, who is the head brewer and was trained in Toronto under some of Canada's most iconic brewers. It was a cool episode as we talked about Mike and Cael's adventure of starting a brewery, the greatest generation, known as those who grew up during the Depression and then fought in World War II, or any war for that matter, the importance of telling a story and building a company, and a lot more. Enjoy. Mike, nice to see you again. Thanks for sitting down. I really appreciate it. We are back for the third episode of the Eco-Capitalism podcast series, sponsored by Rundle Eco Services, and we are here sitting in the Tailgunner Brewery with Mike and Cael. Mike, can you explain a bit of what the upcoming episode's about and why we're here?
Hey Trev, long time no see. How you been doing?
I'm good. Things are good. I'm on my first beer here at Tailgunner, so really appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, we're here with Mike McLeod and Cael Tucker from Tailgunner Brewery. The first 2 episodes that we recorded in the Eco-Capitalism series were reflective on ESG. And for those out there that are not familiar with ESG, what ESG stands for Environmental Social Governance. First episode, I talked about the environmental, on how we were recycling plastic, and what the absolute numbers were there of the pounds of plastic that we were recycling, as well as how that reflected on a financial statement, tying it in to the eco-capitalism, the capitalism part. Then the next episode, Jim Cormatt, great episode from Enternext, talked about the G, the governance on ESG, and talked about compliance and his experience working for one of the large multinationals on compliance. Now we're going to talk about the S in ESG, which is social. And the social aspect is more of the abstract end of ESG. It's about people. Social is about people and values, and what these guys are doing on how they founded their operation and how they reflect the respect to Mike's grandfather, who was a tail gunner in the Second World War. He got shot down, was 2 years in a prisoner of war camp, and the respect that they have for the veterans that fought for our freedom. The finest generation. It's been called the finest generation. I believe it to be the finest generation. Those values, and also on the business. And it's interesting business. Everybody likes to hear about brewery and beer. And if it's the S for social, what better place to be social than in a brewery?
What else have you been up to these days? Rundle's growing, a lot of interesting things going on, a couple podcast episodes coming up in the future. Give us an insight on that.
Yeah, it's been busy. I've been on the road a lot. Just spent some time in Edson talking to a large gas producer, and looks like we've got a deal going there with them to recycle liners there. That's pretty significant volumes that we would be doing. Also, last week I was in Bashaw talking to POW, which is cooperative for the farmers, that they're trying to do the same thing as what we're doing in the oil business, but way more successful. They're way ahead of us. They have a cooperative called Clean Farms, and they've got a plant up and running. Their volumes are north of 10 million. I think it's going to be close to 15 million pounds this year. And we're going to have Dan Zimble, the president of POW. He's agreed to come on, and stay tuned. He will be up shortly.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Mike and Cael, welcome. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Why don't you crack that beer?
Yeah,
Mike.
I got a beer here.
There you go.
We're here at the Tailgunner Brewery in Calgary, Alberta, with Mike and Cael, the founders of Tailgunner. Mike, Cael, can you explain to people out there listening what the Tailgunner Brewery is and why it got going and a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. Mike here. So back in late 2018, Cael and I were looking to, I guess, diversify would be the right term, and we had a lot of conversations about what we were going to tackle next. We've had I think, a very successful run working together, building a couple of companies over the years, a couple of construction companies. Through our discussions, we had numerous ideas, but we found ourselves having these discussions in a lot of different breweries around town, and kind of finally looked around and went, well, what the hell's wrong with this? You know, these guys seem pretty happy. So that's kind of, I don't want to say exactly why, but that was a big factor, I think.
Kind of your own passion, following what you're into more than any strict market research and anything along those lines, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely, we love the whole craft beer scene, the whole brewery scene, all that. You know, we're not experts in it by any means. We're the new kids on the block, but definitely we just like probably the biggest driver for us, and certainly with our culture and what's behind is, Mike, what Razor had said, the greatest generation is that sense of community. And that was a longing. I think Mike and I are hardwired with our value system, and everything that we put into the Tailgunner brand with our value system is built around community. And we really feel that was the main driver why the greatest generation became such, was that sense of community, looking out for each other, and just kind of a positive headspace to be in, and a forward-thinking headspace. And that really attracted us to model a business around that, along with crafting some excellent beer.
The story behind Tailgunner Brewery, Lint Stephenson, World War II veteran, I believe, shot down. Can you give a bit of background on Lint and why that's so important to the company?
Yeah, I mean, we can both speak to it.
Who was Lint? Was that
Lint Stephenson was my grandfather, and a wonderful man. I actually got into construction because that was kind of his passion. He was a carpenter and built a lot of stuff early on, and when he got back from World War II and continued that right up until I was probably about 12 at least. And yeah, I learned how to build stuff with him and really enjoyed it, and really got to know him kind of that way. I spent basically every weekend out there at his hobby farm with him and my grandma. And anyway, just a wonderful, humble man. Later in his life, when I was, I would say about 25, he shared with me his memoirs that he'd been writing.
World War II veteran.
World War II veteran, yeah. And no one really knew anything, my mother included, who's his daughter. He didn't speak much of the war, and a lot of those guys didn't, talking to most of them. But, you know, he felt his story needed to get out there. He didn't feel it needed to get out there. He felt he needed to get it on paper
at least to one
before
person.
He forgot. I remember him sharing that with me, and it was just like, whoa, like Hollywood movie-ish kind of script there, and it was real. Anyway, really neat man. And my brother actually took those memoirs, put a book together He was an English major in university and was able to kind of clean that up and make it into a book. And that's where I really got to understand the trials and tribulations he went through. And there was a sense of pride there for sure, but I always wanted to honor him in life. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2015 and couldn't figure out exactly how to do it. Was it get a painting done, get a tattoo, do something? No, I wanted to do something. And, it was really neat when Cael and I were going over this whole thing, why we're going to do this and stuff. We were trying to figure out a name, and Cael's the one that was like, man, it's Tailgunner. And just awesome on Cael, and that's how tight we are.
What's a Tailgunner for?
So a Tailgunner is literally that in a Lancaster bomber, which was the main bomber of the Allied force, was bombing the hell out of the Germans back in World War II. That was pretty much the most dangerous position in the plane. I think, I could be wrong, but I think there's only a 10% survival rate literally on that, and that was on the high side. So anyway, you sit way in the back of the bomber. It's pretty tight. You got 4 big guns, and man, you thump the hell out of them.
And that's what Lynn did.
That's what he did. And so the story goes, he was 21 years old, flying his 4th mission with the crew, and these crews were so tight it wasn't even funny. I mean, they were beyond brothers. Very short period of time. I mean, relying on each other and stuff. So they were flying over Holland. They just kind of finished a bombing run and unfortunately got caught in the spotlights at night. And when that happens, you're kind of a goner. Like, everybody on the ground starts shooting at you. They lost 3 of their 4 engines. The whole armada left them. They kind of limped along back into Holland and thought they were about to land at an Allied base. But as they got closer, they could see that the Nazis had taken it over. And Red Mcgill, who was the pilot, said, "Hold on, boys. We're in it now." And everybody kind of buckled up and got ready. And unfortunately, they got shot down. Plane got split in half. And my grandfather, Lynn, fell all the way to the ground without a parachute opening, landed 2 feet from an irrigation ditch, slammed into the mud, broke his leg and his shoulder. And I'm not exactly sure what the injuries were at the time, but a farmer saw him, and his kid actually saw him and told his dad. He said, "I saw this guy fall from the sky right into our field." And the dad ran out, picked him up out of the mud, brought him into the house, and tried to, in a very short period of time, nurse him back to health. The Nazis came, searched the wreckage, only found they were missing 2 bodies, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
They found the rest.
So he was the only one who
He
lived.
was one of them. And the other one, unfortunately, was underneath the plane. When they pulled it all off, they found him. But they searched around, and they found my grandfather, caught him, brought him to a POW camp. He was there for 2.5 years. The rest is history. And anyway, this was a really neat way to honor him. But more so, we wanted to honor that generation. And it's not just the veterans and people that fought in the war. It's, everyone in the world was actually affected by that war. It's odd with this whole COVID thing now, and I know we don't want to speak about that stuff, but the world was united, and it doesn't matter who that person was back then, whether they were farming or just trying to do something for the war effort. I mean, you got to think back then there were rations, there were all kinds of different things we don't even know about, and what a generation. And they just plugged through it. They all worked hard, won the battle against the greatest evil the world's ever known, and here we are. So it's kind of the core stories. My grandpa, and he was a Tailgunner. But we really want to get people talking, and our biggest slogan is remember. It's on all our cans, on everything, and we want to get people talking about that, and because everyone has a story, whether it's their uncle or their aunt or grandma or whatever. These stories shouldn't be forgotten and lost, and I guess that's kind of why we want to do it. Cael, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just real quick. The remember thing, there's that, but it's also, we want people to remember that generation, remember that time period, obviously pay tribute to it, but aspire to it as well. And that's a big thing, going back to the sense of community, looking out and just not talking about it. But that's, we get a lot of people, a lot of slick talkers out there that talk a good game, and we see that. We really want to put our money where our mouth is and have that place where every creed, brand, color is welcome. And we do want to really be a pillar in the community. We're going to be, and so far we're off to a good start with our first 3 beers.
Not to mention you guys like the product too.
I'm not biased, but it's the greatest beer ever made.
Yeah. I like it too. I had one on my podcast last night. So shout out to Tailgunner Tailgunner Brewer.
Great, thanks, Trev. Yeah.
Of the Czech Pilsner.
Yeah, it's an incredible beer.
Yeah, it's coincidentally, I was over there one time in Czech Republic, had a taste of the real Czech Pilsner, and I've never had a better beer.
Oh, hey, thank you so much. We'd love to take all the credit, of course, but I know
honestly,
Mike and I, our brewmaster, Blake Enemark, is an incredible person, first and foremost, and he is a master craftsman in the beer industry. He's well respected, and we're so fortunate to have him here with us at Tailgunner.
So how'd you guys get to know the brewer, and how'd that come about?
Yeah, so Mike had mentioned we put some serious R&D into scoping out the local breweries and sampling all the beers 10 or 15 times over to make sure we had the taste nailed and the atmospheres and stuff. And we kind of had a short list together of people, what we wanted in a brewmaster. And we're fortuitous in the sense that with the construction companies, we pride ourselves on the culture of the companies, the type of people we want to be around, and alignment is everything to us. Mm-hmm. And we feel that if you have an alignment with the person, the benefit of that is that you can grow and learn together.
Okay.
And no one knows everything, no one can do everything. And the most important thing to us, and hard lessons learned along the way, but we feel we've learned them. Yeah. And we didn't want to make the same trials as we did growing the construction company. So we had a short list of people that we knew that they were mastering the craft, but also a sense in talking to the community, the craft beer community, that this was a person that we had targeted. He was number one on our list. And we went pretty hard after him, and we were introduced to him through one of our strategy advisors. Okay. And we vetted him out. We came and met him at another brewery he was working at, and it was a flat out no. He was ready. He was at OT Brewing.
Okay.
Fantastic brewery here, local brewery here in Calgary as well. Shout out to those guys. Yeah. Sorry. And but no, they're a great brewery as well. But
you literally poached him.
Well, no. Blake was he was looking to make a change. He was about to have start a family. Okay. And everything else. And he actually, the nice thing, and one of the larger lures was, we were central to where he was living now.
I don't mean poached, but he came over.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, cool. He did at the end of it. And it took, another meeting. And then when he came and saw the space, Mike and I put together a handbook for, growing our team, what we're about, our culture, our values, everything else. And it struck a chord with them. It aligned with them. And that's where the alignment really rang true with Blake, we feel. And we had him under contract the next day. So that's within the first day I think it was on a Monday when he said thanks, but no thanks. And we had him signed on the Wednesday.
That's awesome.
So couldn't be happier with having him on board.
I think that really speaks volume to values and actually putting your money where your mouth is. We found that at Rose Bros. A lot of people speak to the environment and trying to help out with various initiatives. A lot of hippies out there with their signs protesting, but how many of them actually put their money where their mouth is?
Right, and all the Instagram posts or the likes in the world, it doesn't really move it forward unless you're going to take action, right?
So, I've worked in the energy industry, and now we're trying to support the environment, but the idea is you actually try and contribute in a meaningful way. So speaking to the story of hiring your brewer, it sounds like the values was an important part of it. And
I'd say the most important for Mike and I, we're passionate guys. I guess is the word I'll use. And everyone has their good and bad days, but that was the most important thing, is to have someone in the same value system. Put your head down, money where your mouth is, do what you say, follow through.
I think people see through that too, right? Oh, it's pretty transparent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. If you're not who you say you are, I think most people in this world, they can see it. Yeah, in the first 10 minutes of speaking with you.
So to you guys as beer connoisseurs or big fans of beer, what to you makes a good beer?
It's old. Like there's a lot of beers that have been done over a very long period of time. Yeah. So there's plenty of them out there that are amazing. So
is it ingredients? Is it the story?
What makes it different, and what we're trying to be different. What makes us different is the fact that we're trying to unite a whole bunch of stuff. So we've landed Blake. Blake is, we'll put it, an old world brewer in a very young shell. He's a young guy. He got his tutelage from some of the greatest kind of Canadian brewers in the last few decades anyway. One of the guys out of Toronto at a place called Godspeed really kind of taught him some of these old methods that really aren't used that often. And we don't want to give away a whole bunch of trade secrets here or anything like that. But at the same time, this is one of those chords, those value things with Cael and I, and it struck with Blake, is quality. And quality comes in many different shapes and forms, but it was quality of method, it was quality of ingredients, quality of equipment, and obviously quality of individuals and planning and stuff. And Cael and I think, put together a really good team here, which we got to give a shout out to our wives as well. They're a big part of everything that we're doing here.
Yeah.
Tanya and Shannon. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of a 5-headed dragon in here with Blake, and we're doing a lot. We're all wearing a lot of hats right now. The 4 of us are learning a lot. Blake is, I think, pretty excited about what he sees, the effort and everything that's going into it. But as far as, yeah, what goes into a great beer, I think really it just comes right down to the team and the people involved and the decisions made. And there's one other guy, I'd sure like to say his name right now, but we're kind of can't. But he's a big part of it as well. Him and Blake have I guess a really good symmetry going on with some of these beers and stuff. And we got some neat stuff coming out. But yeah, I think that's really it. It's people and decisions that are being made. And so far so good with the people that have sampled our beers. We're kind of hoping for some negative stuff because we want to.
Absolutely.
But so far it's just, I don't know if it's all our friends so far. Just nobody wants to say anything.
Put it on Amazon, you'll get a lot of negative.
Yeah, there you go. But I mean, so far so good. We're getting a lot of compliments and people are enjoying it, and that's what it's all about, right? So
I've read it's Quench Your Own Thirst by Jim Koch. I think he's the Samuel Adams founder, Boston Brewing Company. So that company is worth $2 billion now. But he spotted a trend in craft brewing early on. Do you guys think the idea is to extend that craft brewing trend and kind of add a story to it?
Yeah, I mean, modeling this out, like I said, there was lots of late nights and early mornings, we'll say, modeling out the business. Yeah. And definitely we have a plan in place that we do. We're not looking to take over the world by any stretch, but we want to maximize the potential of Tailgunner, which we feel it's another separator from us. We are about community, but community can be without boundaries in a lot of sense. So yeah, absolutely. We have plans to expand and model this thing out so it can reach its potential.
I mean, I just was surprised how much opportunity there is in beer. I had no idea.
It's talking to people early on. We did hear that the market's saturated. There's breweries going under. We feel 20% of the breweries in Alberta are going to go under in the next 3. We've heard all that in the data points and read all that. I don't believe any of it.
Right. I saw Banded Peak. Did you guys know them? They sold, I think, within the last year.
Yeah, out in the Barley Belt. And congrats to those guys. Maybe that was part of the plan, maybe not. But they got absorbed by one of the larger international breweries, I believe they are. I don't know if I'm allowed to say them, Labatt's. Yeah. But they were swallowed up by those guys, but that's not really why we're getting into it, us personally or anything.
For sure.
We want this to be, when we're 6 feet under and dead and gone, we want this brand to live on and stay true to itself. So that's it. We got some realistic, lofty expectations for the potential of Tailgunner.
Do you have any successful brewers that you look towards? What makes a successful brewer or successful company for you guys?
There's lots of great stories locally, certainly people that we aspire to and hope not to learn the same lessons that they went through. Definitely in terms of, personally, some of my favorites are here in Calgary. Mike and I have been fortunate enough to visit a lot of great breweries out on the West Coast, and certainly listening to Blake is some of his experience through Portland and San Diego and across seas and everything else. But yeah, all those spots. I mean, to name a couple, I really like what Old Beautiful's got going on. I love that. What they got, the whole vibe of their brewery and everything else. I mean, Cabin, 88, Establishment, all these local guys, Banded Peak. I mean, you go on and on. I really love the community of the craft brewers here in Calgary in particular and Alberta, and that sense of community within the craft breweries. And yeah, we're really excited to be part of it here on 10th Avenue with our neighbors Two House.
You guys have a cool spirit to the company and whatnot, and we're here in the office, which is awesome, by the way. There's so much history in craft beer. Like, I was reading about Anchor Brewing. Did you ever? They were 1898. It's an amazing company. They actually recently sold in 2018.
Oh, wow.
But along the way, they were always one of these companies that resist the urge to grow. They kept it small on purpose. And I always thought that was really cool, is that, they didn't grow into conglomerate on purpose. They kept that culture, which I found was really cool.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's, hats off to those guys too. Anybody that has that vision at the beginning, when they, the seed comes out of the ground and they stick to that vision. And success stories are all you can paint with a wide brush on that one too. And we share that, Trevor. the companies that stay true to themselves and just wanted they know their cap and where they want to spin their wheels and everything else, for sure.
Do you guys have inspirations business wise? Because you also have a successful construction home building company on the side. Did you kind of look towards anyone business wise, or what got you into business in general?
Well, initially with Stonebridge, I think that's kind of a different story, but really Tailgunner.
On a side note, you guys are also business owners of a home building company, which also successful business.
Yeah, exactly. It's
people listening.
Stonebridge just turned 20 this year, and we couldn't be happier with it. It's amazing. It's been a great journey. But Tailgunner, it's interesting. We have a very close friends, which their uncle was on your podcast, I guess the second one, Cormac's, and they started.
Yep.
So Jamie, Lyndon, and Jason all started Herschel backpacks.
Right.
And for those that don't know Herschel, I don't know where you've been, I guess.
Yeah.
But pretty neat. We're incredibly close to them, and it was pretty neat watching Jamie in particular. That's one of our best friends here, and Jamie, I was talking to him the entire time.
Shout out to Herschel Backpacks.
Shout out to Herschel Backpacks. I'm sure they need it.
Yeah.
Watching them grow, it was inspirational, really, and watching passion, the dream and passion turn into reality, and just watching it grow and grow and grow. It was really, really neat. And so Jamie, of course, being the guy he's always trying to help, and hey, you should do this and you should do that and you should do this, and it's like, holy man, forgets that we can't do all this different stuff, right? But he's trying to like spawn something.
That's a good person to lean on.
Oh, he's amazing. So when Cael and I decided to do this, I mean, he just went mental. He was so excited, and immediately a flood of emails and ideas and stuff, and he's like, it's manufacturing and this and that, and we didn't even think of it really that way, and it was pretty cool, and I mean, he set us up with our branding outfit and some other stuff. He's at an arm's length for sure. He just cares, right? He cares about us and believes in us and knows it's going to be good. But I'm not saying we're going to be anything close to Herschel, but
what was his advice on going into beer? For instance, it's similar to coffee, right? Because there's a lot of coffee companies out there. Everyone's like, well, why would you want to do coffee? James and I said, well, what industry isn't saturated? That was our answer. So I don't know what your response to that would be.
Jamie's biggest thing was what makes you different.
Right.
And I think equal to that was the story. And his biggest thing was it was the story. It's like, what's your story?
Mm-hmm.
And he knew the story already, which he's like, this is it. Wow. And I think the biggest thing for him was telling us, hey, keep the story tight right now. I mean, it's World War II. You could tell millions and millions and millions of stories. Keep it as tight as you can and let it grow and get people talking. So I think, it was fun. It was fun to be creating something and having a guy that created something and found that kind of niche in the market and had an incredible story. Herschel, all about travel and this and that and community. I mean, the community initiatives they do is just incredible. Anyway, it was really neat having him on side and stuff, and he was excited for us. And so far, so good.
Yeah, and just to add to that, in terms of inspiration, I think Mike and I have always, and in particular in the last 3 or 4 years, with our parents in particular, my mother and father, leaning on them constantly, and just Mike and I have known each other since we were 5 years old, and certainly with Mike's parents, I think that's been a major driver in us modeling and constructing not only the construction companies, but also jumping in with the brewery and then surrounding ourselves with mentors like we're sitting with here today and people that we can lean on and talk openly and honestly with and be able to shape and model our own ideas and thoughts and everything else with their counsel.
What do you guys think that may be unconventional for the company? Is there anything that you guys believe in that maybe goes against the stream from other beer companies?
Great
Too early
question.
to tell?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I don't think that we're so far off any of our ideas or modeling separate or outside as I think that we have a great story that we're building around. Obviously, incredible branding, and there's been a lot of people that have helped us with that. But the vision that Mike and I had for this thing, it's sewed in beautifully with everything else. But I guess the one separator that we do have is that outside of the remember and the alignment and the community and everything is that it's timeless. And when we, pay homage to the greatest generation, that isn't about specifically remembering that. It's also remembering your own aspirations, sense of community. And there's nothing stopping this generation from being the greatest generation. There's always time to move forward, do what you say, follow through.
Have you guys ever thought about maybe giving back portion of your profits to support the veterans or the military and something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. We'll definitely have that in.
A little early now, maybe.
Yeah, no, there's a few different companies that have that model, and we do want to have a quarterly with our we're calling it our growler ambassadors and everything else. That's we all kind of get together and vote on which charity is going to get a percentage of the proceeds each quarter.
That's cool.
And we will have charities nominated by our growler ambassadors every quarter, and that's where that focus and energy will go.
You guys are pretty successful businessmen already. So one question we ask,
we're trying. Yeah,
there's a lot of,
we're trying.
Maybe seems like you're doing all right, but what would be the worst business advice you've ever been given?
The worst business advice we've ever been given. I think there's a lot there to unpack.
Yeah, fire away.
I don't know.
This will be pretty funny.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say who it was. But
don't name any names.
I will say this. It was, hey, I was talking to a guy, and I think with this new deal you've got, everything going on, you should get you should secure a $3 million line of credit.
Debt.
Cael didn't like that. maybe someone will remember that listen to it, but that's okay. That was some bad advice. We did not act on it.
Right.
Debt. Let's get into debt.
Yeah.
No, it's obviously depending on what company you're in, depending on what kind of business you're in, cash flow requirements are everything. And as people know, building companies, cash flow is really everything to get over that magic hump, which,
for sure.
Boy, I sure can't wait to see what that looks like. But yeah, I mean, that was some silly stuff. Thank goodness we kind of looked at each other and went, no.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, but no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's probably, off the top of my head, the worst advice I was ever given. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I guess one major one was, this isn't a specific person, but it's just a philosophy about how a culture will form itself within a company.
Okay.
And that, to certainly to Mike and I, that isn't something that's negotiable or anything else. And we'd like to make sure that everyone within a company is a steward of the culture and everything else. It's the right people in the right seats, all that sort of stuff, the cliches in business, but the 5 satisfiers and all these things. There's a million books out there, but the don'ts, that was probably the biggest one, where any great or a company, the culture will you'll see what you got in a few years out of people and that sort of stuff. And I don't agree with that.
Right.
I certainly haven't had that experience.
Speaking of financials, have you guys had to kind of go on a limrod to get the company going? Has it been a bit of a stretch?
It has been the easiest golden pathway. That's been the least of our.
That's the part of entrepreneurship a lot of people don't talk about, is the maxed out credit cards and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think certainly Mike and I, we're careful in most of the respects that we should be, but it's definitely some sleepless nights. Yeah. There's that leap of faith. You step off the cliff onto the invisible bridge, as it were, and just try to get across it. But yeah, no, and really, Mike had said it before.
That's another beer cracked right there.
Yeah,
if you didn't hear it.
there's one person that has really, we talk about being a steward and everything else, and that's Tanya, our finance manager. She is really, at the helm of that, and keeps Mike and I on the straight and narrow, and keeps us structured and everything else. And without her in particular, I mean, we would probably be in some muddy water for sure. Not to say that we're not. It's just we have a plan.
Yep.
And so that's the finance thing is definitely a trip, man.
Yeah, and Tanya happens to be Cael's wife, so this is interesting stuff because
you got to recognize the wife. Right?
Yeah, I gotta be honest. Having
big part of the team.
Well, it's one of those things, and having family in business is pretty tricky.
Well, Rose Bros Coffee is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Cael and I, luckily, we're pretty much family anyway. Knowing each other this long, it's incredible. But over 40 years, really, but Tanya, I tell you, she's been everything Cael said and more. She's been awesome. Shannon too. Shannon's just coming into her own now. She's part of the sales team. She is the sales team, and she's finally got some products. She can get out there and start moving some stuff. But it's pretty neat because I sure never foresaw this with our wives being involved.
Yep.
Quite frankly, I just didn't. That's never been anything I've ever done with the construction companies and stuff. But holy man, are we lucky?
Yeah.
It's neat. I highly recommend it for those that have exactly Tanya and exactly Shannon. The rest of you, I think, steer clear.
Yeah,
we're pretty lucky.
Could go either way.
We're pretty lucky.
Yeah.
I know Razor and his wife work together, and that works beautifully. I think. I don't know. I can't speak on behalf, but he's nodding. Yeah. But I mean, it's a tough thing, and I know you and your brother.
Mike's
obviously.
also a successful businessman, so obviously it's working.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rarity. It's definitely a rarity. So,
yeah.
But we are lucky, and I guess that's another part of the story. Is it's just as corny as it sounds. This is a family-run business, and
well, it's good till it's not, and then it.
And then we got to do something.
There's
hopefully not.
Yeah. It's awesome. I appreciate you guys. So going forward, Tailgunner Brewery, any big announcements for you guys coming up? I think you got some pretty big distribution plans.
Yeah, we just had our third beer come out. So our first two, for those that don't know, are the Lint Stephenson Czech Pilsner. It is an authentic Czech Pilsner and one of the only authentic ones we know of in this province. The next one is our Hazy Pale Ale, our Dame Dorothy. We're very, very proud of that one. It seems to be flying off the shelves as well. And our third one that just came out literally yesterday, I believe, on shelves is our Red Mcgill Double Ipa. Let's just say it's a bit of trouble, that one.
It's strong.
It's strong, and you can't tell. It's 8%. It's 8%, and it tastes like candy. So, I mean, look out.
It's a great golfing beer, or maybe not a great golfing beer.
Yeah. Or
it's
fishing.
Good for a couple beers.
Don't bring it fishing unless you have a life jacket on.
Yeah.
Anyway, you should be wearing a life jacket all the time. But we do have 3 more that we're working on that we're very, very, very excited that are going to come out in the fall. Yeah, so stay tuned. We're excited.
And we're in the brewery now /office. Any updates on when the brewery might be open for people to come by and check it out?
Yeah, thanks, Trevor. We just had our equipment delivered over the last couple of weeks. So we're working with Blake, our brewmaster, and our plan is to be brewing beer out of the building come September. Past that, Mike and I are watching closely what's happening with the pandemic. And I mean, initially we had a plan to be have the beer hall, the public space open, the tap room open this summer. That went out the window, obviously, and whatever it was when the shutdown in March. We're going to wait and see what happens here over the flu season and everything else. I knock on wood. I hope not, but we're projecting that our beer hall open to the public will be spring 2021.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Big shout out to Mike at Rundle Eco Services. We'll leave her there.
Thanks again.
Thanks, boys. Love the message of the COVID. The fight that we're going through right now is similar to the same fight that Lynn went through in the Second World War. The frontline workers are warriors just as much the same as Lynn. It's a different fight. Yeah, it's a different world, but the size of the heart, the spirit of the fight is the same.
Hey, thanks for listening, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. If you liked what you heard, check out rosebros.ca, where we will have upcoming shows. You can also find our coffee and chocolate there, where we plant one tree for every bag or bar sold through our partnership with One Tree Planted, a cool non-for-profit organization focused on global reforestation. Until next time, happy coffee drinking.